as we gather together, whatever part of the world we might be in, it is for us to be able to grow spiritually. It is for us to be able to understand the spiritual path better. It is for us to be able to recognize ourselves as we truly are. The saints and mystics have always wanted us to focus on the truth, to use this existence as a means to get to our goals. And so the words of the saints, which many times have come in the form of poetry, are very, very potent to be able to get to our goals. Poetry is a form in which a few words can convey a lot. In the way the words are chosen, the way they are put together, in the language in which the poem is written, reflects on many thoughts that the poet wants us to know. And so today, as we gather together, I'd like to take a ghazal of Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj, which talks about different aspects of the spiritual path. The beauty of a ghazal is that different verses in a ghazal can put different thoughts out to us, so that in one ghazal we might have many different aspects which are being clarified, so that just one ghazal, if we understood it thoroughly, could change or transform our lives if we made our life like that. This ghazal is talking about a state that we do reach for us to be truly, truly blissful. The union of our soul in the divine with God is a state of bliss and joy and happiness. And that's the state that we want to be in, at all times of our life. We want to be in that state. And the saints have taken examples from day-to-day life to be able to relate to us the bliss and joy of the spiritual union with the Lord. And so in this verse, in this first verse of this ghazal, how are we finding ourselves when we are in that state of bliss is what is being talked about. And so Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj here is saying, and this ghazal is in Urdu, he says, "Ye kisne keh diya aakhir ke chup chupa ke piyo. Ye main hai main, ise auron ko bhi pila ke piyo." Which would translate into English, who has said that you must drink in secret. This is divine wine that you must share with others. When we talk about bliss, when we talk about ecstasy, the great saints, especially in the Sufi tradition or in the mystic way, have always used the example of a tavern. A gathering of seekers of truth is compared to a tavern. Because people go into the tavern to get drunk, because by drinking wine, they feel they're going to be in ecstasy. And most people in this world relate to ecstasy being that state. Many people of this world think that if you're a vegetarian, if you're a teetotaler, you must be in misery. They say, you're a vegetarian, you meditate, how do you have fun? You must lead a boring life. Nothing exciting happening in your life. Little do they realize the bliss and the joy that people who are on a spiritual path have. And they don't even realize that this bliss and ecstasy that we receive is one which has no hangovers in the morning, no pain in the stomach when you get up, no headaches which are worse than migraines. And so Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj, through this verse, has conveyed many, many meanings to us. If we would just look at the verse at the outer level, you say, like, when do people generally drink alone? Answer should come in sorrow. Like when you're in sorrow, you don't want to see anyone, you don't want to meet with anyone, you want a bottle, you want to drink. And when you're happy, what do? You're drinking with friends. You throw a party, invite all your friends, you're drinking with them. And so here Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is saying that don't drink alone. There's no need for you to be alone. Because what you're drinking is not the wine of this world. What you're drinking is divine wine. And the more you share, the more you're going to be receiving. Now this is a very interesting concept which needs to be understood, I think, very clearly. Because many times when we get initiated, we are told you have a direct relationship with God. You meditate, don't tell anyone else what you experience, because your experience is entirely your own. And no one else comes between you and God. So which would seem like you meditate on your own, you lead a spiritual path on your own. And here Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is saying, like, do not drink of the divine nectar by yourself. You need to be in an assembly, you need to share it with others. It seems like a paradox. And what is interesting, on the spiritual path, you find many paradoxes like that. So let us try to understand this verse, or at least understand the scene that we are in. Let us just think of a tavern. And in a tavern, some people are drinking here, some people are drinking there, some people are drinking here, some people are drinking here, and this one guy is drinking in the corner by himself. And so the cupbearer is telling this person who's drinking that he should not be drinking alone. Now when we use this example and we talk about the assembly of the masters, or we talk about a satsang, in a satsang, when we are there, many of us think if we are alone with the master, then we will be in bliss or joy because we'll have all the attention of the master. And so Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj here is saying, like, when we are in a satsang, when we are in the assembly of the master, when there are so many of us, then we are going to gain. Because not only is our relationship with the cupbearer, the master, straight one-to-one, and so through the bliss that comes in our direction, through the grace that comes in our direction, through the radiation that comes through the eyes of the master to our direction, not only do we get into a state of bliss, it is as follows. When we come to the assembly of the master, the ones who gain are the ones who come with an empty cup. If we come with a cup full, if we come with our ego, if we come with our I-ness, then we're not going to be able to gain anything. So those who come with receptivity, their cups are empty. And so when the glances of the master fall on us, our cup gets full a little bit. And then the glance goes someplace else, and the other cups get full, and other cups get full, and then the glances come back to us, and we get filled some more, and get filled some more. And so in the assembly of the Master, we have a direct relationship with the Master, even though we might be sitting in hundreds or in thousands or in tens of thousands or lakhs of people. You know, many of you, I'm sure, have been to the satsangs of Sant Kirpal Singh Ji Maharaj and Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj. He saw lakhs and lakhs of people there. And what is interesting to understand is that the manifestations of the divine are many. And so in that assembly, the relationship that the saints have explained is that of a divine wedding. Now, in the activities of the world, you know, there's one bride and there's one bridegroom and they get married and the wedding is there. But the beauty of the spiritual path is there's one God who's eternal beloved, and we who are souls are all brides of God. And the people who have a clear understanding of the spiritual path understand that there's the God which we call, I would say, the creative power, is the one that our soul needs to merge in. And that power of God can manifest in many, many ways. And so in that assembly, each and every one of us has a direct union or a direct relationship. And so not only are we gaining when we are in that assembly because of the glances of the Master coming in our direction, because Sant Kirpal Singh Ji Maharaj many a time would say, like, two-thirds of spirituality comes through our eyes. But when the Master is looking at someone else and we see that charging, our cup fills up a little bit more too. If we were alone, it'll only come in our direction and it's gone. But if we are in assembly, it goes here, but we can still get some more. It goes here, we can still get some more. So that's like a double charging effect. A third charging effect happens because when the divine wine is putting someone else in ecstasy, so their cup bubbles over because they're in bliss. And you've seen many people maybe in the satsangs of the great Master just have out-of-body experience because, you know, their sensory currents are collected here and they are experiencing the divine. And so when their cup bubbles over, we gain from that process too. And so Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj here is telling us that if we are by ourselves drinking the spiritual wine, then we would be much more benefited if we were in the company of other seekers after truth. And this is why so much emphasis is placed on attending satsangs. You know, as we get initiated, one of the things that we are told is that we should regularly attend satsang. Why? Because of this reason. Because being in that environment, for one, we are experiencing the truth, and for other, we are getting into states of more and more bliss and ecstasy for ourselves. And so Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is using this verse to explain this aspect of the spiritual path to us. If we are by ourselves, then no one else gains from our gains. As we receive something, let us say that someone has gone to school and become a doctor or an engineer or an architect or you know, one of the professional people. And then they sit home and don't do anything. So then all of their education has gone to waste. And so similarly, as we are on the spiritual path, when we gain for ourselves only, and when we are by ourselves only, then we are not bringing any more joy into the world, any more happiness into the world, any more ecstasy or bliss into the world. But if we share what we have gained, then we are going to be able to make the life of others better. And, you know, if you're a doctor and a patient comes in a lot of pain and you diagnose properly what the trouble is and you fix the problem, there is tremendous sense of joy and of fulfillment within. And similarly, if we have gained something, if we have found something in our life which helps us, when we share with others, whether they be our relatives, whether they be our friends, whether they be people that are acquaintances, there's a tremendous feeling of fulfillment within, because whatever we have gained is also helping someone else. And this is why Kirpal Singh Ji Maharaj would often say that what you've gained, don't put it under a bushel basket. All these things are related. When you try to understand the spiritual path, the words of the saints are all saying the same thing. They might use different examples, they might say it in different words, in different languages, but they're all pointing to the same thing. That as we get initiated, we should not cover what we've received under a bushel basket. We should share with others. And this is what Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is telling us here too. And he's saying, "Ye kisne keh diya, aakhir ke chup chupa ke piyo," which would translate as, "Who has said that you must drink in secret?" Even though love is a secret, and when we are on the spiritual path, the great saints say that our love for God should also be a secret. Only we in God should know. But when we are sitting in an assembly, what is very interesting is that relationship is only between us and the Master, or us and God. And no one else is aware of that relationship. In other words, Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj has said something to the effect. He says that while we're sitting in the assembly, no one knew, or no one has any inkling of what treasures the Master has doled out in what direction. Why? Because all the relationships are by themselves. But when we are sitting together, our attention is more on the divine. We gain not only from our own experiences, we gain from the experiences of others who are surrounding us. We gain a lot more for ourselves. And this is what Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is letting us know in this verse. In the next verse, Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is talking about another aspect of spirituality. And if we would understand this thoroughly, we would be well on the way on the spiritual path. Master says, "Game jahan ko, game zees ko, bhula ke piyo, haseen geet mohabbat ke, gunguná ke piyo." This was translated into English as, while drinking this nectar, forget the sorrows of life and the pains of the world, and hum songs of beauty and love. So this verse is talking about how things happen in our day-to-day life. You know, we're always caught up in the pains and the sorrows of this world. All of us think that our life is beset with many, many, many problems. All of us think that there are more difficulties in our life than anyone else's. Everyone else seems to be doing very, very well. But we are having all the problems of this world. And many a times when we feel like that, then we are very despondent. We don't want to do anything. We don't want to be involved with anything. We just, lay back and don't do anything. We just give up on life. And when we read the poetry of Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj, it's a very uplifting poetry. It truly, truly talks about how one should be passing through life. We need to understand that there are ups and downs in life, and many times we all feel there are many, many more downs than there are ups in life. Our soul, which is a part of God, has karma associated with it. The Sanchit karma, the Pralap karma, and the Kriyaman karma are three kinds of karma which are associated with each and every one of us. The Sanchit karma, which is the storehouse karma, which is a karma that started with our soul as a soul left God, is the biggest karma. The Pralap karma is that which we are to pass in this very lifetime. And that you could call fate or destiny karma. And the Kriyaman karma is that we do every day. So every day we have thought, words and deeds, and so we are held accountable for them. Now, we who are souls, who are associated with a mind and a body, who are living in this physical region, have kind of forgotten God. And as we have forgotten God, the pains in our life have started to come. It is said that there are only two states in which we live. One is when we remember God, and the other is when we forget God. Most people live in the second state than in the first one. And the key is to somehow get into the first state, where we are remembering God at all times. Now, our soul is so associated with the body and the mind that it doesn't even think of itself or know of itself as being a part of God. God is an ocean of all love. God is an ocean of all bliss. God is an ocean of all ecstasy. So our soul, being a part of God, is full of love. It is full of bliss. It is full of ecstasy. But when it doesn't remember God, when it doesn't remember itself, it doesn't know it's full of love. It doesn't know it's full of ecstasy. It doesn't know it's full of bliss. We don't even know who we are. We just think we are the body. And the smart guys think they are the mind or the intellect. But little do we realize that spirituality is well beyond the body and the mind. And so, the spiritual path, which starts where the intellect stops, is what becomes very difficult for us to understand, because all our life we are trained to learn something, memorize it, run it, use our intellect, deduce, analyze, and none of those work as we want to gain spiritually. And so the great saints and mystics who are always exhorting us to know ourselves through the examples of this world are putting us in a direction in which we can truly, truly understand ourselves. And so if we get caught up in the sorrows or the difficulties or pains of our existence, then we are never going to get out of that cycle. And so here Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is saying that the sorrows of life and the pains of this world, you should forget them. They're like vaporous bubbles. They're going to be bursting. They're going to pass away. I'm sure many of you here have passed through many difficulties. Sometimes you get sick, sometimes parents get sick, sometimes the examination is bad, you're worried if you'll pass or fail. Your school team is losing a game or a championship, and you're very, very worried. And it looks like that's the end of the world. And then that passes, you forget that. Something else comes in your life. And so what is important to realize is the difficulties of life are not going to stay there forever. They are going to pass away. And we should have the faith in the Lord that that is passing of some of our karma. And rather than take it in a manner in which we are destroyed, we should take it smilingly. There are many examples from the life of even the great saints and mystics. We all know that the great saints and mystics are in ecstasy and bliss all the time. Okay? But look at their lives and the difficulties they pass through. Someone was, nailed to the cross. Someone was put on hot iron plates and sand was put on their head. Someone went through so much difficulties. And when we go back in history, the difficult periods come in the life, even though the saints or the true saints or the perfect masters don't have any karma, they pick up our karma. At the time of a holy initiation, our sanchit karma, which is the big storehouse of karma, is wiped out. And so they help us pass through our difficult periods. They could take our pralab karma too, but if we would take it, our life would be extinct. And so help is provided to us. And there are many, many stories out of the life of the great saints as to how help comes in the life of those who believed in them, how they provide so much help to so many people. There are many examples of the grace of God coming to many, many disciples. And so, as we try to understand this verse, Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj here is saying that we should forget the sorrows of life, we should forget the pains of this world, and we should be drinking the divine nectar. We should be in a state in which we are connected with the divine nectar. The divine nectar is the holy Naam or the Shabd or the light and sound of God, or the Jyoti or Shruti or the celestial light, or the harmony of our harmonies. That is where true happiness and joy comes from. And that is what we need to experience in our life. And that is what we need to nourish ourselves. And that's the nourishment for our soul. And that's the connection that needs to be made. And as we are doing that, we should be humming songs of beauty and of love. Whose beauty are we humming songs? The God's beauty. Whose love? Divine love, the love of God. So that our attention should be on God. Now this path of Santmat is a path of positive mysticism. So this is not a path of negation where we step away from life, where we are negating life. This is a path of positive mysticism. We live in the world, we perform all our responsibilities of the world, and then we focus our attention on God. In Punjabi there's a saying which says, Hath karval dil yarval, which means our hand to our works and our heart to our beloved. And so our beloved is God, that's the eternal beloved. And so as we live in the world and as we are focused in the activities of the world, our attention should be on God. And when we are involved in activities with our attention on God, then we are taking steps closer and closer to God. And so through these two verses, Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj here is telling us that let us not be despondent. The ups and downs of life are going to come. Let us not negate life. Let us take life as it is. Let us have the faith in God. Let us focus our attention so that whatever we gain can help someone else. Let's say you see a good movie. Then what do? You tell your friends to see it too. Let's say you went on a vacation and that was a beautiful vacation that you had. You want others that you know, your relatives, to go there too. Let's say you ate a chocolate which is very sweet or very good. You want others to eat it too. And so similarly, what gives you happiness is the divine. When you experience divine love, here Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj is telling us that let us not keep it to ourselves. Let us share with others. And as we will do that, we will find that our life would be lived in a manner in which not only are we going to be happy, but our bliss and joy will go to others. Now if you look at the lives of the great saints and mystics, that's what they do. And if you look at the life of, let's say, Sant Kirpal Singh Ji Maharaj or Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj, and some of you here have seen Hazur Baba Sawan Singh Ji Maharaj, what do these saints do? They go from one place to another, to another, to another. Why? So that they can bring others' attention towards God. They recognize that not everyone can come to them. That's why they travel. They write books, they give talks. Why? So that people can know about spirituality, people can know about the divine. I mean, they are one with the Lord. They could just sit and meditate all day. They don't have to do anything. But out of compassion and love for all humanity, they share what they have achieved themselves. And that is what Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj is asking us to do too. We who have been lucky enough to have come to the feet of a perfect master, and whatever we gain, should not like stay aloof and keep it to ourselves. That it is in sharing that we are giving of ourselves, and it is in giving that we receive. And so it is my prayer to God and to the three great masters, Hazur Baba Sawan Singh Ji Maharaj, Param Sant Kirpal Singh Ji Maharaj, and the gracious Master Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj, to help each and every one of us attain this state of bliss for ourselves. And as we find ourselves in that state, that the grace of the great masters overhead be that we be able to share that with everyone else that we meet.